Welcome back to the Sunshine State Rails. We're cutting the intro off this one for obvious reasons. But the day started out pretty normally on October 15th, chasing a few trains up and down the S line, the video for which I'm currently working on. But once those trains had come and passed, it was soon to become pretty dead on the S line for action. So before we'd call it a day, we'd head over to Tampa to see if there was any last minute action over there. And coming into town, we would hear on the radio that our familiar Palmetto Subdivision local 0750 was getting ready to leave Yeoman Yard to switch customers at points south. He was stopped just outside of the yard at TS, so by the time that we had heard this and got around the corner to TS on Palmetto Drive, the gates were already coming down for 0750 coming across the road. And that was when this happened. Well, that happened. Wow. So yeah, that did happen. A lot of y'all are probably wondering now what the rationale was behind that. So let's slow that down a bit. If you look here, he pretty much hits the brakes almost right as he's next to us. So I'm thinking one of two things. He was either distracted and then looked up and saw that there were gates down, so tried to slam on the brakes, or they knew very well what they were doing, and once they realized how close the train was, they tried to hit the brakes, and yeah, it was not enough. But yeah, beat up Dodge 4-door blew through double gates on Palmetto Drive, about 40 or so feet in front of 0750, and if we look at it one more time, you can see how once he hits the gate, it bends backward to let him through, even though he still tears off part of it. The majority of crossing gates in North America are made out of those materials so that they can bend or break like that so cars don't get stuck, though that's not true everywhere. On the East Coast, I know that a lot of their crossing gates are made strictly out of metal. And looking one more time, we can see that this dude pretty much hit his windshield almost directly. So if that was metal and not plastic, you get the idea. We were still planning on following 750 for a bit, so by the time we made it to our next location, I made sure to call this little incident in the odd event that the engineer wouldn't have already, so they could have somebody come out and look at this crossing gate, which, as it goes up, you'll see what kind of shape it's now in.
SAS south in the Rango on the main. 8197 on the main. Line 4 till 1500. 10, 15, 21, no.
Yeah, that gate looks done for. Needless to say, that guy got very lucky in regards to that the train wasn't moving any quicker and that he didn't get there any later than he did, because this could have ended a lot differently. As I mentioned though, we were still going to chase 0750 a bit south, so our next location was the old US 41 crossing where I'd call the little incident in, and we'd also have two dump trucks behind the camera run the ungated crossing. Though they weren't too close to the train, it's just like, come on, this is definitely what we need right now, huh? In regards to the train itself, 0750 today would be armed with 5 rock hoppers bound for Palmetto's Conrad Yelvington, a boxcar for Port Manatee, and 13 DJTX hoppers loaded with coal for the Tampa Electric Power Station on eastern Tampa Bay. Normally this power plant will get their shipments on unit coal trains, though said trains don't run very often, and the service to the plant seems to have shifted to a more small constant stream. In that, as of right now, instead of building up a supply with multiple unit trains over a period of time, they're sending in these tiny shipments of excess coal hoppers to keep the plant constantly running, though since they don't need very much, they're getting small shipments like this now on locals. Now I don't know if it's going to stay this way, but for right now, it looks like this is how they're doing it, as this is the first time that I've seen coal loads on 0750. Where we just shot the train, that was right on the north side of the Alafia River. Crossing the Alafia River into downtown Gibsonton, we heard over the radio that the train was coming to a stop. And since I had just called the little incident we had in about 15 minutes ago, I thought it was something to do with that. But it wasn't. This crew wasn't about to have a good day today. as the crossing just to the south of us, Gibsonton Drive, had one of its crossing gates fall off for some reason that I'm not exactly educated on. A signal maintainer was already there, and the train was going to have to stop and flag the crossing, but the circuit ended up working, so they didn't have to. If you look on the ground as the train rolls out of the stop, you can see the entire gate laying in the ballast. About 8 miles further and we're in Apollo Beach now, and 750 continues to run south, having dropped the 13 coal hoppers in the Big Bend siding. He'll have to get those when he comes back north, as the spur to the plant opens to the south, so the loads will have to be shoved in, which can't happen until they come back north, which will be after they get everything else done. Continuing south, Port Manatee would be the next stop to drop off the boxcar, so leapfrogging him down to Morgan Farms Road in Ruskin would be the next spot. And finally, down at milepost AZA 905, 750 would arrive at Port Manatee Yard, which is primarily a holding yard for loaded phosphate hoppers, which at some point the Port Manatee Railroad will emerge from the port and bring a few of them in at a time to unload them and transload the phosphate to ships for points elsewhere. Though there are also other miscellaneous freight industries in this area and in the port itself, so these box cars come for that. The rock hoppers would be going a bit south to Palmetto, but that wasn't something we were going to stick around for today. Watching him shove in, this would conclude our little chase, cause as one may assume by now, we had already gotten way more than we had bargained for this day. Hopefully next time we see y'all back out here on the high iron, it'll be in a little bit of a safer fashion. Thanks for watching this quick one, and until next time, I'll see you out there somewhere on the Sunshine State Rails.